Namaskar. Free and compulsory basic education. India was under the British Raj for more than 2 centuries before the attainment of freedom in 1947. During the first phase of the East India Company rule, westernized system of education for Indian subjects was not under the purview of the company's original policy, as its main object was trade. It took no educational ventures for nearly 100 years of its establishment in 1600 AD. In 1757, when the East India Company embarked on its political career in India, there was no education system organized and supported by the state Basu. It only came in 1813 when Parliament included in the charter a clause that made it not obligatory but lawful for the Governor-General in Council to set apart for education a sum of not less than 1 lakh of rupees. This clause was the first legislative admission of the right of education to participate in the public revenues of India. Till 1823, the company did little for education, as it was more interested in wars, treaties, and settlement of debts than in establishing schools. Ultimately, Lord Macaulay, in his minutes of February 2, 1835, instituted an education policy in support of the British Raj by establishing the hegemonic influence of English as a medium of colonial instruction to form a class who may be interpreters between us and the millions whom we govern, a class of persons Indian in blood and color but English in tastes, in opinions, in morals, and in intellect. Sharp. Spreading English education was not an act of disinterested magnanimity. It would lead to the stability and permanence of the British Raj. The real motive behind the Macaulay's system of education was to produce personnel for employment in newly set up revenue and public works departments of the provinces. The educational policy laid down in 1835 and reaffirmed in the Wood's Educational Dispatch in 1854 was on the whole adhered to till 1947. Basu. The ideas and the methods advocated in Wood's Dispatch led to the rapid westernization of the educational system in India. The indigenous system gradually gave place to the Western system of education, and primitive Indian effort also gradually appeared in the field. During the period of 20 years between 1882 and 1902, in keeping with the recommendations of the Indian Education Commission, the responsibility for primary education was transferred to local bodies, but due to the absence of funds from government, sufficient progress could not be made. The local bodies too could not vigorously levy an education cess for fear of displeasing their electorate, and demand for more money for the expansion of primary education would not be met. Dayal. The laissez-faire policy enunciated by the Indian Education Commission 1882 had led to the rise of numerous privately managed schools and colleges. Basu. The reforms envisaged by Lord Curzon did not attempt any reorganization of the primary education system or suggest any concrete program for solution of the immense problem of illiteracy. Curzon justified the increase of official control over education in the name of quality and efficiency, but actually it sought to restrict education and discipline the educated minds towards loyalty to the government. The nationalist mind saw in Curzon's policies an attempt to strengthen imperialism and sabotage development of nationalist feelings. Grover and Sethi. Actually, the demand for free and compulsory primary education in India under the British Raj started formally just after the passing of the Compulsory Education Acts in England in 1870, 1876 and 1880, when Dadabhai Nehruji and Jyotiba Phule from Bombay Presidency in their evidence placed an emphatic demand for 4 years of compulsory primary education before the Hunter Commission 1882. Since then, our Indians took the baton. What Gokhale failed to achieve for the whole of India, Sri Vittal Bhai Patel achieved at least in theory for Bombay. Gokhale's defeat shaped the demand for free and compulsory primary education into a national one. Since the end of indirect colonial responsibility for education after the passing of the Government of India Act 1919, the Indians got ample scope for passing compulsory education acts in most of the provinces. Although the introduction of compulsion in all the acts was left to the discretion of the local bodies, they were hardly ready to court unpopularity by levying any additional cess. With the existing provincial resources of income, the acts would have little more than symbolic value. The local option in the matter of compulsion was responsible for inaction. In the report, Hartow Committee aptly opined the responsibility for mass education rests primarily with the state and the provision of educational facilities for all the classes of the community and for all areas should not be left entirely to the mercy of local authorities, who may be unwilling either for political or other reasons to initiate schemes by which compulsion may be financed, or who, owing to the backwardness of the area or the people, may be unable to devise suitable measures for compulsion on their own initiative. Government of India 1929. The Montfort reforms give only a semblance of power to the provincial ministers of education, who could do little beyond making paper schemes. Indian ministers had no control over important departments like finance. The principle of compulsion was theoretically accepted in almost all the provinces, and compulsory education acts passed everywhere, but at the local authorities, who were mainly responsible for primary education, were unwilling to carry out the policy of compulsion for more than one region. The Compulsory Education Acts generally remained a dead letter. It can be claimed that only the concept of compulsory elementary education came to be accepted in theory and was incorporated in the laws of the land, especially after the transfer of education to Indian control in 1921. But financial difficulties prevented the Indians from taking up ambitious schemes of implementation or improvement. At last, the Sargent Plan 1944 proposed that the universal compulsory and free education of 8 years was not possible to achieve in a time frame of not less than 40 years due to paucity of trained teachers, financial burden, and ever increasing number of children. Although the Kher Committee 1950, after the containment of freedom in 1947, cut down the time span of 40, that is from 1944 to 1984 to 16 years, that is from 1944 to 1960, universal compulsory and free education remained an unfulfilled dream during the British Raj, in spite of the steering efforts of the nationalist leaders, educationists and politicians. Colonial interests or power within the educational policies in British India in the form of hidden agenda was the key barrier to the fulfillment of the demand of Indians. Right or demand for the free and compulsory education for Indian children under the British Raj was consistently denied, and it has also been consistently delayed in free India. The colonial power shaped and guided the educational policy, and the educational institutions promoted the needs of the colonizer, ignoring the aspirations of the colonized. The needs of the colonial powers always determined the development of the education system in British India. Despite many recommendations and suggestions for free and compulsory primary education, colonial government always left the issue under either local self-governments or the private enterprises and philanthropic efforts. The passage to free and compulsory education in India ultimately arrives at its final destination when it became a justifiable fundamental right in the Constitution of India in 2002 and enacted in 2009, after the 100 years since Gokhale introduced his private bill in the Imperial Assembly, 71 years since Mahatma Gandhi gave the call for universal education in 1937, 61 years since independence. Rana. Dhanyavad. Thank you so much.